From Del Rio, Texas, Rob Wade and Robert Garza. Two guys who dive. This episode of Two Guys Who Dive, recorded live, Saturday, 8 February, 2014, episode 94, Because We Care. Well, welcome once again to another exciting episode of Two Guys Who Dive, and I'm your host, Rob Wade, and I'm not joined by my co-host, ScubaBob, a.k.a. Robert Garza, because he is out doing a volunteering for the Muscular Dystrophy Association run, so he won't be in. You probably noticed that we haven't been available for the last 2 weekends, as a matter of fact, due to a number of technical issues, one of which involved some upgrades with our system here. We were looking at upgrading our the software that we use for the podcast, which is XSplit. Well, the company, the developers that make this software, came out with version 2.0. And unfortunately, we were running into a lot of difficulties getting it to actually work on our system because of the significant changes that they made to the software. So we ended up having to do some major work on the system to make it compatible with the changes that they made in their software. So far, I have to say, I'm not seeing any great improvements in the software. In fact, I really think that the version 1.3, I think they were up to, actually performed better. But this will be the first podcast that we're running with the version 2.0. We did a few test pieces here and there, and we're still working through some bugs in their system. And unfortunately, they've had for the last 2 months, they've had their community forums down. So it's impossible to use that as an avenue to communicate with them the issues that we're running into. And obviously, they're working very hard to try to address the concerns and issues that we have. And this is some of the features that they were trying to implement as part of version 2.0. were pretty significant. Unfortunately, some of the things that they did actually kind of reverted back to problems that they had in previous versions, which have been very frustrating. They were very frustrating when they happened under the 1.x versions of the software. And now that they've reared, some of them have reared their ugly head, now it's become pretty frustrating. So we're trying to work through those. So hopefully you'll be able to indulge us as we work through some of these. But we're back finally, back online, getting things going. So this episode is titled Because We Care, because we'll be talking about a number of things as we come into Valentine's Day this week. And we do this because we enjoy talking about scuba diving, as well as a number of the other things. For those who follow the podcast regularly, you know that we talk about not just scuba diving stuff, but we talk about a number of tech things, and kind of Robert and I get into little debates here and there, especially on Facebook. Those who follow us on Facebook, I'm sure you see a lot of the little debates that we get into there. But and we have fun with it. I mean, we definitely disagree on a number of things when it comes to the tech arena, but we have fun with it. I mean, we're still good friends and everything, but we'll definitely take shots at each other as we go. But you know, we cover the wide variety of things here, and it's because we care about those subjects. We enjoy talking about them. We enjoy debating when it actually goes into a debate. And if you get involved in our chat rooms, which looks like we have Texas Diver out there watching, if you get involved in the chat rooms, we'll interact with you and at least entertain your comments, questions, etc. About what we're talking about. But if you raise a subject that, especially if it's scuba diving, but if you raise a subject that we can talk about, we'll certainly expand on that. Now, realize, of course, that there is a delay in the time between what we're actually doing and when you see it or hear it, because Ustream TV has commercials, etc., other things, and there's delays in the way they process the live stream. So what you're seeing is probably anywhere from 10 seconds to even up to, I've seen the delays grow to almost 3 minutes. So don't get frustrated if you find that we're addressing something that you commented in the chat room a minute ago or 2 minutes ago, because you're seeing the delay of when even though we'll see it as soon as you type it, but you're typing in response to something that we've said maybe 2 minutes ago. So, and that's just the way Ustream works. But so this week we have a number of things we want to hit on. First of all, I'd like to welcome Billy. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the last name right. Pakran. He contacted me via email. He's a diver. He's an advanced diver. Was asking a lot of questions about the area, diving in the area, and so I was giving him the lowdown on diving around the Del Rio area and the challenges of getting folks who really, really are seriously enthusiastic about diving. It really is challenging for me as an avid diver to find folks who are ready to dive at the drop of a hat. And to be quite honest, it's going to be virtually impossible for you to be that flexible if you don't already have your own gear. Now, I can loan some stuff if I'm diving with you. I don't rent anything out for the most part. But if you're diving with me and you're missing a piece of equipment, I'm more than happy to let you use it in the dive. I feel like a big sneeze is coming on. And no, darn. Oh well, I hate that. And I've got, oh wait, here it comes. Oh, I hate that. So frustrating. Isn't that frustrating? When you've got a sneeze just building up, and I'm like looking at bright lights. I got bright lights in here. And you're just on the verge. You just feel it's like enveloping all of your sinuses, and then it just goes away. I hate that. So frustrating. So anyway, so I'll loan some pieces out if it's appropriate. So you don't have to feel like, oh, I really would dive a lot more if I only had this piece or that piece. So you just let me know, and we can work a dive. Because that's why I'm ScubaDog. I will dive with anybody. If you're a decent diver, I'll go diving with you. I just love the experience of diving. I'm not like some people. I'm not a saltwater snob. I'll dive in just about any conditions if it looks like it's going to be a fun dive in any way. Even in really low visibility, I'm not afraid of low visibility. And anybody who's been diving at Lake Amistad knows that the visibility is all over the flipping map. It'll be anywhere from 4 feet to 30 feet, depending on time of year, what particulates are suspended in the water, what the algae blooms are like, all sorts of things that affect the visibility in Lake Amistad. And I've gone diving in all of it. I really have. So if you're willing to jump in and knock out a dive, I'm pretty much right there with you. I didn't get to do any night dives last year, which is very frustrating. I normally go on night dives with my co-host, but he didn't get to dive at all. I mean, just his year was completely shot as far as diving. He has said he endeavors to pick that up this year, but I'm looking for anybody in the Del Rio area that's up for doing some serious diving this year, in between the classes that I've got going. So if you're interested, definitely connect with us on Facebook, etc., and or email or Skype, and we'll get something going for sure. So if you watched our first episode of the year, we have traditionally done a movie list for the year. So we had myself, Robert, and our good friend Troy McGonigal, who also guest hosts on a number of occasions, and we all kind of brought our list of movies we were looking forward to this year. Well, for me, the first one isn't until later this month, but one of Troy's movies on his list was I, Frankenstein. And since Tara and I had not been at the movies for quite some time, we decided to, and we just had very, very crazy schedules. I'm still kind of getting my feet wet, getting things situated with the new job that I'm in, and she's getting promoted, so she's kind of trying to put things to bed from her old position to go to the new one. We've got a show coming up that we're working on. I mean, there's just so many things, crazy things going on. You know, our lives are never boring. So anybody in Del Rio who says there's nothing to do in Del Rio, I want to know what kind of drugs you're taking, because there's plenty to do. You just got to decide you're going to get out there and do it. It's that simple. So it's been crazy. We haven't had a lot of time. So we're like, let's just go to the movies. And as it turns out, we did it right. We went right after we were finishing up a rehearsal for the show we're working on. So it's like bolted out of there, jumped on my Fandango app on my wonderful Windows phone here, my Lumia 1020, and got to the theater in time to see the movie. So we went to see I, Frankenstein. I had fairly low expectations of the movie, but it was going to be a departure, just breaking away from things, and so good escape mechanism. So went to go see it, and I was pleasantly surprised. Now, I will say, as a Christian, there were a number of themes in here that tried to write a how shall I say, alternate mythos to the whole thing about angels and what they do, and they came up with this concept called the Gargoyle Order, and they're supposedly a type of angel set to protect humankind, and I just found it it was fun, but not anywhere. You won't find that anywhere in Scripture. So if you're easily offended by that kind of thing, this is probably not the movie for you. There a lot of violence, but it's all fantasy characters for the most part, so no big deal. There wasn't really any language to speak of, which was good, and wasn't really any gratuitous. There was no nudity or sex or any of that. So from that aspect, it was actually a pretty clean movie. I was really surprised. It was just, fantasy killing, and so it was violent that way. Interestingly, and we got a good laugh out of it, the lead female character in the movie, played by Yvonne Strahovski, is a character called Dr. Tara Wade. It was so hilarious because it's spelled exactly the same way that Tara, my wife, our producer, spells her name. So it was kind of interesting to see that. So we got a good chuckle out of that. So now, both our names do appear in film. Hers in this movie, and mine as, I think it's the screenwriter for a number of the James Bond movies. If you look at the credits for the James Bond movies, you will see, even though it's not me and that's not her in this movie, you will see our names. and so it's kind of interesting that we are vicariously famous. So if you do Google searches, you'll probably find those kinds of things, or Bing searches. We use Bing here. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So back to the review. Visually very good. I felt the gargoyle characters still looked very on the cartoonish side of the CGI. The CGI was, for the most part, seamless as far as I could tell. But the action was engaging enough that I wasn't looking for a lot of flaws, which was okay. You know, I try not to be distracted by flaws in a movie, or continuity flaws, or editing flaws, those kinds of things. But if they become real obvious, then, you know, that will distract me. It's kind of like when you watch somebody performing or doing a speech or something along those lines, and you suddenly realize there's a particular tick or a behavior or characteristic that they do frequently over and over. You end up kind of watching for that. Oh, there they do it again. They're doing it again. You know, if every time that you saw them doing something, they always did a hand up. You know, they say something and do a hand up, or do a point or something. You end up starting to count that, and then you start making some sort of a weird game like Hi Bob, or one of those drinking games or something like that out of it. It's kind of weird. But so there was nothing like that in the movie, and so we enjoyed it. We had it was worth the money. It was in 3D. There wasn't too much that was what I call blatant 3D abuse, where you see them intentionally having something that goes at your face to really maximize the 3D effect, because I hate that. When I go to see a 3D movie, I go to see it because I feel immersed in it, not because it's beating me up. So if it's well done, it doesn't feel like I'm being smacked around the head and shoulders by the 3D effect. And this movie, for the most part, satisfied that. So if you're looking for escapism, Frankenstein is not a bad movie. It's not, other than, again, the violence. There's not much else that's really in what I would call the typical offensive arena. So it was okay. It was a nice film for a fantasy film. So go see it or don't. In the news, in the diving news, I subscribe to a number of lists and email newsletters, that kind of thing. And one that I saw come across that was I kind of did a double take, was about a cargo ship where the third officer, which, you know, it's pretty high up on any ship. You're third in line to command the ship if something goes wrong, or if the captain and the first officer or the second officer are not available. The third officer was injured, receiving severe burns across his face and hands that were caused by an explosion of an oxygen breathing cylinder, an O2 cylinder that was used on the ship. Here's what he tried to do. He tried to fill or top off the O2 cylinder using a regular common air compressor, SCBA type, the same type that we use in recreational diving. So the compressor that we use, it just takes regular air that you breathe, 79% nitrogen, 21% O2, and the rest trace gases. It takes that, runs it through a number of filters, and then compresses it into your tank. And that's what you breathe. You're breathing the same kind of air that you breathe at the surface, albeit filtered and dried. You're breathing at depth, because you don't want to, as you saw in a couple episodes ago, we talked about partial pressures, talking about breathing full 100% oxygen, what that does to you. Oxygen toxicity. So what you don't want to do, and it's absolute no-no, is you don't want to fill for instance, enriched air tank, which has a higher percentage of oxygen in it. The partial pressure may be 32% or 40% or even 50% O2 starting off, and then fill the rest with regular air. You don't want to fill one of those tanks with a regular compressed air tank. But in this case, this third officer was filling an actual O2 cylinder. That's what his purpose was, to provide 100% oxygen. He was trying to top it off. Apparently what happened was he normally would do work with the cylinders with somebody else in charge. Not this time. He had one of the regular sailors helping him, but so he had no other supervision, and he was not rated to actually do what he was doing. However, he noticed that one of the regular O2 breathing cylinders was below its nominal pressure, whatever it was for their standards there. So he decided he was going to top it off. Well, he didn't understand the difference between an O2 cylinder and regular SCBA air that we breathe in recreational diving, or that firefighters use, that kind of thing. So he takes the O2 cylinder and he's trying to connect it to the SCBA compressor. Well, the connectors don't work together. They're different connectors. But not to be frustrated or undone, what he decided to do was he found a compartment, storage compartment near the equipment that happened to have an adapter that would adapt between the normal connector used with the compressor and the valve, the purge valve, or the filler valve on the O2 cylinder. Okay, so see, that should have been his first hint that he's not supposed to be doing, is that you had to find an adapter to make it work. So he gets the adapter, he plugs it in, or connects everything up, tightens all the connections, etc., and then he fires up the compressor. I have to assume, based on what happened next, this was probably a gas-powered, like mine, like a good number of the compressors that are out there. So he fires it up. Now remember, this cylinder has 100% oxygen in it, which is extremely flammable. So he fires up a gas-powered cylinder, and just within seconds, there's this huge, the O2 cylinder explodes because it ignites and creates a big fireball in the area where the compressor was. And luckily, the person who was assisting him wasn't burned, but was able to use a hand extinguisher to put out the fire. And of course, the third officer was severely burned as a result. So this was a case where if you don't know what you're doing, you shouldn't even try something like this, because compressed air, period, can be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, because it's compressed air. When you're working with cylinders that are potentially anywhere from, when normally filled, are anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 pounds per square inch compressed into a cylinder, and you don't know what you're doing, you can have fatal circumstances, fatal results from a bad decision if you don't know what you're doing. And in this case, dealing with anything higher than normal air, higher concentration of oxygen that's more than our normal air, you are inviting a potential problem. The higher the concentration of O2, the more susceptible to explosion, the more flammable it becomes. It's a volatile gas. Okay, that's why we are not supposed to breathe it at 100% going down at depth. That's why you don't have any kind of igniting mechanism, electrical or flame or whatever. You don't have that around 100% O2. It's an accident or potential fatality waiting to happen. So, fortunately, he lived, but now he's got to go through all sorts of therapy, etc., to recover from his injuries. So, tragic circumstances out there on a cargo ship, no less. So, all right. In other news, on 17 and 18 May of this year, TEKDiveUSA is hosting in North America, and I think this is going to be the first time this is being held in North America. TEKDiveUSA is hosting or is presenting the latest Undersea and Hyperbaric Medical Society UHMS guidelines on recovering an unconscious diver at depth. Now, when we teach for recreational divers, when we teach the rescue course, and you come across an unconscious diver, we teach that you're supposed to quickly survey the situation, look for any entanglement, etc., that's going to that could impede your ability to bring the diver up to the surface, and you basically try to keep everything in place, okay? Because you don't know what the actual condition is, and you want to get them into a place where they could be treated or resuscitated if that's the case. So what we teach is you keep everything in place. You keep all their gear in place. If you find the regulators in their mouth, you keep the regulator in their mouth. You actually hold it in place. You come up behind them. You hold it in place with their chin up so that as you're bringing them up to the surface, that any air that's expanding in their lungs, because remember, when you're at depth, whatever air is in your tissues, it's in your lungs, in your sinuses, etc., is going to want to expand as you come up because the pressure is reduced. So that needs to go somewhere, and you don't want to create more problems if this person is potentially savable. You don't want to create more problems by putting them in a situation where air can't escape under normal circumstances. So you keep them upright and you keep the chin up so that opens the airway. Just like if you were doing rescue breath, CPR, you keep their chin up so that the air can escape. And you keep the regulator in place so that if they take a breath, they can still breathe out of the regulator. And then you get on the surface, establish positive buoyancy, and do your rescue breaths, and you start heading towards shore. Well, there are tremendous challenges when you're dealing with tech diving, deep diving. You have actual decompression issues to be concerned with. A lot of the kinds of situations that revolve around tech diving can involve improper mixing of the gases. When you're doing the deeper dives, you're typically doing special mixed gases, mixing helium in there, etc. And as you come back up, you're shifting your mix as well. So there are a number of concerns when you're coming back up. One of the things that might be seen is they mixed their gas. They did an incorrect mixture, or they had equipment failure. If it's a computer-controlled rebreather mix, they could go into seizures. For instance, if they suddenly had too high oxygen at depth, it can cause seizures, among other things. So there are a number of considerations that are above and beyond what you would normally see on a recreational diver that might be unconscious. So there's been a 3-year study, if I recall correctly, that the UHMS did, looking at a number of questions that they need to be answered, because there hasn't been a lot previously looking at this particular aspect of tech diving. Tech diving has come a long way. It's become more and more popular, even amongst recreational divers. In fact, there's a lot of bleed over into the recreational field. You see a lot of folks that are recreational now designing or setting up their own rig like a tech rig with their side mounted extra hoses. I mean, extra long hoses for that would be typically used in a tech diving arena. I myself use and I provide for the students the alternate air source necklace, which is basically just a rubber hose, rubber tube kind of thing that allows you to place the alternate, your octopus, through an opening there, and it keeps it right here. And it's one of the ways that tech divers have used earlier on to help streamline their rig, because obviously tech divers, amongst the things the kinds of diving situations they get into, is also a lot of cave and wreck diving, a lot of enclosed diving areas. So you don't need a lot of things hanging off of you, and you want everything very quickly accessible. If you're in a tight spot, for instance, you don't want to find yourself trying to find where your alternate is. It's supposed to be kept in this triangle, right, between the chin and your rib cage. But I've seen a number of configurations that don't fit that, or they're just barely there, so they may be tucked right at the bottom of the rib cage. And if you're in an area where you're having to squeeze through like this, or you're pushing a bottle through and you can't reach your arms back to get down to where an alternate is, it's much better if it's right there and you can just simply pop it into your mouth. So I love those yoke necklaces. They're fantastic. I just think they're the greatest thing since sliced bread, as they say. So anyway, a number of the questions that they asked, they were researching as part of this, that they're going to be presenting the results of at this TEKDiveUSA on 17 and 18 May. Should you try to replace the regulator if you come across an unconscious diver? Should you wait until a seizure is finished before ascending? I mean, these are considerations. Is it a smart idea to just go ahead and work your way up while someone's going through a seizure? Does that have, what kind of effect that has? There might be, intuitively, you might think that as a diver, you know that if you're experiencing nitrogen narcosis, where you've got too much nitrogen in your system, your nervous system is reacting to it negatively. It's like being drunk. You can come up shallower, and you will feel the effects of the nitrogen narcosis dissipate very, very quickly. That's the quickest way to get over the feeling of being drunk that you'll ever see. So intuitively, you might think, well, if I'm experiencing a seizure because I've been breathing for whatever mistake too high a concentration of oxygen, that coming up where that partial pressure is reduced might also help reduce the severity or end the seizure sooner. Well, these are some of the things that they'll be presenting their findings on. What procedures should be in place for a rebreather diver? When you're diving regular open circuit scuba systems, like we typically do, where you have the tanks, you have your first stage regulator that steps down the compressed air to near ambient level, to the hose, to the second stage, what we typically call the regulator, but it's really the regulator is the whole thing. But the second stage that you have in your mouth, and when you inhale, it pulls the air into your lungs. When you exhale, you are expending the CO2 out into the water. And that's why it's called open circuit. But with a rebreather, it's typically closed circuit or nearly closed circuit. And it's simply recycling your air to the system through a scrubber system, usually charcoal-based, etc. And then a little bit of oxygen is added back into the mix because you've exhaled CO2, and so it needs to get it scrubs the carbon out and adds a little bit more oxygen to that mix, so it puts it back to the normal rate. And now current systems are more computer run. They have computer systems built into them where it's you have to do less of the work of calculating. Oh, I'm getting deeper, so I need to change the mix. The computers are adjusting that for you in newer, more modern systems. So the question is, if you reach an unconscious diver who's on a rebreather system, and you're on a rebreather system, what procedures should you be following to properly bring that person to the surface? Should you try to complete some decompression on a decompression dive? Now, here's the thing. You're rescuing somebody who's unconscious. When we're doing an actual rescue dive, the dive training recreationally, you don't do you typically don't do the safety stop. You're coming to the surface. But with a compressed dive, when you compression dive, you're going well beyond the recreational limits. And so you have safety concern for yourself. Ultimately, when we teach the rescue diver course in the recreational arena, your safety comes first no matter what. If it comes down to a choice between whether you're going to put yourself at risk or let them die, then you have to choose to let them die. I mean, it's the only smart thing to do. We don't need to have two fatalities because you were trying to rescue somebody. Because ultimately, you can only do what's within your training and capability to do and what you're confident to do. Decompression dive is even more of a challenge because you will, if you're dealing with somebody who's well beyond recreational limits, you have the safety concerns of being able to properly decompress as you come to the surface. What trade-offs do you decide? What bits of the decompression protocols from a deep dive can you relatively safely forego or bypass to get them to the surface as safely as possible? And in contrast, do you even though you who are in control and are obviously in a better situation as the rescuer, even though you may be introducing to yourself some additional risk, a potentially debilitating condition from choosing to forego or shorten some of your decompression protocols, are you just making things worse for them, even though you're trying to get them to the surface as quickly as possible so that they can hopefully be revived and treated? That's another one of the questions that they were looking at. Another one, should you try rescue breaths in water at the surface? Or do you just move on, just get them to shore or the boat or the dock or whatever it is wherever your stable platform is going to be? Now, I will say that the rescue breaths are pretty much virtually useless at this point, even in recreational rescue diving. Even though we go through that process, there's really not a lot that you're doing. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons why they've now gone to generally just compressions only for CPR is that you get enough lung action out of them and a better O2 content into their system if you're just doing as rapid compressions as you possibly can for them. Because by your compression, you're actually pushing air out of the lungs, and by pulling back, releasing the pressure, their rib cage is expanding to normal and drawing a higher concentration of oxygen, the 21%, as opposed to when you're breathing into them, which is a much lower O2 content. Okay. You can't do compressions in water. So obviously, you're not going to be doing that kind of part of the CPR. The only part of CPR you can do in the water is the rescue breaths. Because at that point, if you find that they're unconscious and not breathing, then the only thing that you can do to potentially help them is give rescue breaths. So one of the questions is, when you're dealing with a deep diver, a tech diver who's unconscious and potentially not breathing, is there a benefit in doing the in-water rescue breaths while you're towing them? Because we teach that. You're bringing them to the shore, and you're doing the rescue breaths as you tow. It's a physically exhausting and challenging thing to do, especially if you're in open water, which is typically where you're going to be doing a lot of your tech diving. It's usually not as bad in your average freshwater diving environment, but it's potentially a huge challenge. And is that worthwhile, as opposed to trying to get them to the shore as quickly as possible? So, if you're a tech diver or just interested in seeing what the latest guidelines are, that's 17, 18 May at this year's TEKDiveUSA. As a matter of fact, I have their website up here. So you just go to TEKDiveUSA.com. You can register and see who the speakers are, etc. Pretty awesome website. Number of their sponsors. They're on Facebook, etc. So if you happen to be in the Miami, Florida area in May, which would be awesome because the weather, the dive weather should be awesome for that too. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. So anyway, Scuba Diving Magazine has a sweepstakes going on right now, and you can win. Do I have that? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Scuba Diving Magazine has a sweepstakes going on now. So if you go to, I made a short bit.ly address you can go to. If you want to take your shot at it, go to http://bit.ly. That's a site that we use, that a lot of people use for shortening really, really long website addresses. So you can go to bit.ly/SD sweeps. That's capital S, capital D, capital S, and then lowercase WEEPS. SD sweeps, and you will go to this website. And so grand prize is a week of unlimited diving aboard the Turks and Caicos, I never know how to pronounce that, Aggressor 2 for one person, retail $27.95. I would love to do a live aboard dive trip, except Tara and I both get seasick. And so potentially we'd be on one of those and be on Dramamine or Bonine the whole time, and just would probably just be miserable, other than the diving itself. Because we had an experience that I'll share in a moment. That was, the dive itself was great, but it was just a horrible experience on the surface. So anyway, the first prize after the grand prize is a Sea Life DC 1400 camera, as you see here, with the Sea Dragon Mini 600 video dive light, which is pretty cool. That retails for $529.95. And then the second prize is a Modus Marlin Purge and Marlin Dry mask, snorkel, and fin set, a Volo adult set. Retails for $55. So you just fill out your information there, send it off, check whether you want to receive various fun mail from them. But throw it in there. What do you got to lose? It's not costing you anything. No purchase required to. So I put in for it because you never know. I would probably suffer through the dive if I actually got the trip, but I would be hoping for the camera, even though we have the DC 1400. Wouldn't mind having a second just as a spare. And then of course I wouldn't mind the mass fin snorkel setup too. That'd be pretty cool. I always like more gear is better than no gear. More is better than less. If you watch, what's the commercial? I just get so tickled at. It's better to have more or less. So anyway, just go to http://bit.ly/S, D, and then lowercase WEEPS. And you could take your shot at trying to get some goodies, courtesy of Scuba Diving Magazine, which is a good magazine, by the way. Well worth the investment. So we got 15 minutes to go. We're cruising right along really good. Speaking of the sea life gear, we do love our camera. We have featured a number of videos and pictures on the podcast here and love sharing those on YouTube, etc. That we take with our DC 1400 Pro. They mentioned as part of the gift, the prize package, the Sea Dragon Mini 600 Lite. And we're coming up on Valentine's Day. And so what better kind of a gift to get for the diver in your life than one of these new Mini 600 lights? Let's see. I have this. Here we go. DiverWire did a feature on it, as a matter of fact. It's pretty cool. The Sea Dragon Mini 600 Pro. Let me bring that up again. Is awesome. 600 lumen light. And you see it's very small, so it would make a great, an excellent BC light or a backup light for you. Tara and I always dive, and so does ScubaBob. We dive always with a BC light, even when we're diving during the day, because you never know when you're going to get in a dark area that's got an overhang, or you want to see into an area that's dark, especially when you're diving in fresh water, especially at Lake Amistad. It's better than not to have some sort of a light. And you can see this thing is small. It's a small light, but they talk here. It says, with growing trend toward underwater video, Sea Life not only has improved its cameras for video, but also developed new powerful video, photo, and dive lights. What appears as a colorless underwater rock explodes in brilliant colors when hit by the new powerful Sea Dragon lights. And what's interesting about the Mini 600 is obviously you can mount it to the top of a DC 1400 camera, but you also can mount it to the monopod, and it actually is also you can also mount it to the GoPro cameras, which are insanely popular. I mean, just everybody is using those, and you're seeing tons of videos show up on YouTube and elsewhere, taken with GoPro cameras. And so this thing can be mounted easily with the GoPro, which is pretty cool. So definitely worthwhile. Do they have a price here? Yeah, $129, or basically $130 for an excellent, powerful dive light that can also be used with your video cameras, your regular cameras, and makes a great backup BC light. So, and then also potential opportunity for you to show that you care by sending your loved one this Valentine's Day some great gifts, diving gifts. Diver Supply sent me an email with some great sales they've got, a great sale they've got going on for Valentine's Day. And if you don't have a loved one you want to send it to, you can certainly send it to your favorite weekly podcast host. I would love to receive some of this stuff. I do shop at Diver Supply frequently. So they have a Sea Elite RX 650 regulator package. I have a set like this. The only difference is I've upgraded the analog depth gauge with a computer, but the RX 650 is nice because it's got, if you look, it's got the adjustable resistance on it, which I definitely favor in my regulators, is the adjustable. So a pretty good deal for that if you're looking to get yourself your first regulator package, or have a backup, a spare. Not a bad deal at all. $279, $280 for this package. Or you can, if you've not purchased your own gear yet, the Scuba Gear value system package, $400. My first package was $1,500, but this is a pretty good deal if you're just getting your first package. The Scout BC is lightweight, because I have some of these for my students. The Scout BC is lightweight, got all the good features, zippered pouches instead of Velcro. It's releasable. It's an integrated weight system. Really works nicely. But here you get the basic C Elite primary and alternate regulator, and the analog console, and the BC for $400. What a great way to get started. And then you could always upgrade it later to add a computer, either by wrist or swapping the slimline setup there that they have with a puck style computer. Easily done and well worth it. But I'm telling you, if you are a certified diver and you don't have your own gear, there's just no reason not to. And it's hard for you to be a serious diver if you don't have gear to go out and dive at a moment's notice. So this is a good start, and I can vouch for the quality of this equipment. In fact, if you're in the Del Rio area and you'd like to just take a look at this kind of a setup to see if it's right for you, just let me know. I'll be happy to let you try on the gear, check it out, see what you think about it. Matter of fact, if you want to do a dive with me, I'll certainly let you use the gear so you can test out if you decide that it works for you. You know, $400. Although obviously after the 14th, the price goes up, but they often have this package at a pretty good price at different points throughout the year, so it's well worth it. Just checking out divers-supply.com to see what deals they have going. And then they have another regulator package of the month. Now this setup is pretty nice. The Edge primary and alternate, and you see the Edge primary has got the adjustable resistance on it. They've got the lanyards, and then also the looks like the Modus Puck wrist computer, and then then they have the analog gauges there. So that's pretty cool. So you get the and a dive light and the signal sausage, which is now a required training bit for PADI certification. So for $570, you get that setup. Pretty cool. You can go with the Slimline Modez Mission Puck 2 console computer, so you have your depth gauge and then the computer on the console for $234. And probably wouldn't take but another $40 to $50 to add the compass to that, which I always recommend. If you're going to get a console. Also, make sure you get a compass, either wrist or mounted to it. I prefer that mounted on the console, so I don't have a lot of extra stuff that I have to reach around. It's all right there. I just quickly flip it over and I see I can get my bearings. So, and that's all at divers-supply.com. So again, coming up on Valentine's Day, if you've got a diver in your life it's well worth it to look at getting them something. Instead of chocolates and a big teddy bear, get them some scuba equipment. A dive light or new mask or fins or BC or any of this stuff. Well worthwhile. Like I said, more gear is better than less gear. And it's never a bad thing to have backups to any of the pieces of equipment, because you would hate to be at a location ready to do a dive and find that a critical piece of equipment has failed and you don't have a spare to be able to do the dive, and you have to bow out the dive. Everybody else gets to enjoy a great dive, and you're sitting there on the boat or on the shore unable to dive. So, okay, as we're winding down our last few minutes here, the last episode we got to do, which was 3 weeks ago, we had I was talking about how I'm a big fan of Windows Phone, and an even bigger fan of the Nokia line of Windows phones. And while my 1020 was updated in December to the what they call the black update, which is a number of it's a firmware update to the device, and then the GDR3, which is an operating system update that came from Microsoft. That rolled out to the 1020s, but I also still have in perfect condition. Well, not perfect, is there a little bit of scratches here and there, but I mean the screen is great. It still works beautifully. I still have my 920. And while I, as a developer, as a software, an app developer, I was able to load the GDR3 preview on here. I was still waiting for the actual black update, which did a number of things for the camera, etc. for it. Still waiting for that. Well, that finally rolled out the week before last. Woohoo! So I'm updated and it's great. It's really has enhanced the machine even more than it was before. But then also this last week, AT&T started rolling out the same update for the 520, which sold insane numbers over the holidays. We gave one away as a Christmas present, as a matter of fact. So now, if you're on AT&T and you have the Lumia 520, which a lot of people did buy them, you should be looking for the update. You just go into your settings, like a phone update, and it should tell you, oh, there's an update available for you. Let that puppy install. Some great enhancements to some additional features added to your device. So well worth it. Let's see. As we wind down, I've got to throw in my little rant. I've been the last couple of weeks here in Del Rio. Well, actually, all over the country. It's been insanely cold winter weather. We haven't seen temperatures this cold in Del Rio in a long time. So again, I want to smack upside the head any of you who actually believe in the global warming garbage. Certainly, if you think that it's man-made, you need to go leave Colorado or California or Washington State, where all the drug addicts are, because you're on something. But the thing is, we love our pets. Matter of fact, Ronan has been asleep quietly the entire episode, which shocks me. And it's really shocked me that I haven't heard the rest of them barking at all this whole time. That just almost never happens. But we are insanely protective of them. And because we volunteer at a Pet's Wish, we see the conditions that a number of these animals are brought to a Pet's Wish in. And every time I drive down a street and I see a stray animal, I get very, very militant and angry. I firmly believe that anybody who leaves their dog out in these kinds of conditions, or just doesn't care enough to safeguard them so they can't bust loose and become a stray, I think you should be placed in the same conditions that you're leaving your animal in. I would have no problem coming to your house, stripping you of your clothes, and kicking you out the doors and leaving you there all night and see how you like it. You have a responsibility. to take care of these animals. We've domesticated them. Yes, they can withstand a lot more severe weather than we can, but not a huge amount of inclement weather. When it's getting down to 20 degrees at night, you have no reason to leave your animals out there. And if you own a pet, if you own a dog or a cat, you really, really need to get a proper collar, not too tight, not too loose, but a proper collar, and put the rabies tags on them. You're required in most cities to get rabies shots for your animals anyway, and the vets provide you a tag. That tag accomplishes a couple of things. First, it lets somebody know that that dog is current on their, or that cat are current on their rabies shots. It also has a tag, a license number on it, and where that tag came from. So if for some reason, because accidents do happen, dogs, cats especially can escape, but dogs can certainly figure out a way, get frustrated, and dig out of some place, and that should be prompting you to get busy on shoring up your fences, etc. But accidents do happen, and so there are people like myself who will stop what we're doing and try our best to capture your dog. More well, we will try to capture a dog. I won't go after cats, but I will try to capture your dog. If they have a tag on them, I'll call the vet that issued that tag, and I will do my best to help get that dog brought back to you. There are other people who do that with cats as well. There are a number of us out there who want to see you reunited with your animal, if you cared enough to put the collar and the tag on him. I was driving down Main Street today, coming from working on set building for our show that's coming up. And I saw a family in a truck that had 2 Chihuahuas that were, had their heads sticking out the window. Both had collars. Neither one of them had the tags on them. And I felt like pulling up beside them and just reading them the riot act. Why in the world would you not have your tag on? There's no excuse for that. That is the only way that we would have of helping you get your animal back. Okay? So here's the thing. You should feel absolutely guilty and ashamed if you are not properly protecting your animal by having a proper area, not chaining them up, but a fence. It's like this. If you didn't have a proper area for them to move around in safety, you have no business owning an animal. I don't care who you are, what you think you're doing. You have no business owning an animal. So you need to find, if you're not willing to put up a proper fence and give them proper shelter in this kind of weather, then you need to go find somebody else to own that animal, because you have no business owning that animal. It's that simple. And I will have no problem telling it to your face that what you're doing is wrong. Same token, get a tag on your animal. So if something happens and they somehow escape, because especially dogs can get really wily and they can push their way out. You can be opening the door for somebody and they just take that opportunity to bolt. That does happen. I get that. And so there are those of us who are willing to bend over backwards to try to help reunite you with your animal. Sometimes they'll show up, they'll end up at places, somebody else will capture them, and they'll bring them to a place like a Pet's Wish. And so they'll post on Facebook, here's pictures of the animal, didn't have tags, shame on you, you should be beaten and flogged. But they'll try to find who the owners are and reunite you. But you've got to help them. You've got to do the right thing. It's no different than being a parent. You have certain responsibilities because those children rely on you. These pets rely on you. They've been bred to have certain kinds of characteristics, and so they are domesticated. They are dependent upon us to do the right thing to make sure they're properly cared for and protected. They make great companions if you are a great companion. But I want to lump all sorts of shame on you if you do not properly take care of your animals. I have choice words for you, and I have no problem publicly calling out people if I know them and they do things like that. So that is my rant for this evening. So speaking of a pet's wish, they recently had a number of donations of money, of supplies, equipment, building supplies. So they've been doing a number of really, really needed and very helpful improvements to their shelter. We volunteer once a week with them. That's all the time we can squeeze out for them because we're so busy. But if you're in the Del Rio area and you want to see their setup, invite you to go check them out. They're on Main Street, right next door to the Emporium, which is a very popular old style store, general store. They got the old style soda fountain and all that stuff. Their shakes are awesome. Their malts are awesome. But a Pet's Wish is next door to the Emporium, so down on Main Street. If you go past the Paul Pogue Theater, they're on the left, and it's a great setup, great bunch of people. They have such a heart for all these animals, and these animals need the love and care, and that they're willing to provide. And they're always looking for more help, and they're slowly improving their operation. So I think it's going to be more inviting for those who want to volunteer, but are kind of leery of doing so if the processes aren't organized. They're doing some great improvements, and they're always looking for more help. So check them out. Also check them out on Facebook. Like I said, they'll post pictures, etc. if they find animals that belong to other people, or if somebody else is saying, "Hey, I'm looking for my lost pet," they'll repost a lot of that stuff too. So because they have, like I said, because they care. And I don't rant like this for any other reason than because I care. Let's see. I mentioned a little bit about what I was doing. We're getting ready for our next show. The Upstagers have a show coming up, so we've been working on sets. It's a musical review called Show People, and so we're excited. We're just coming down to the last couple of weeks of rehearsal, and it gets more intense. Trying to work out choreography, which that's another thing on my head. I've got some choreography I've got to work up for one of the numbers that we're doing. So if you're in the area, check that out. I'll be putting some more details in the Ministrivia here. And as a matter of fact, I'll next week I should be able to put up the poster, which looks great. The folks at Canon Graphics came up with an awesome poster for the show. So I'll be anxious to get the digital bits on that and be able to post that on the as part of the podcast next week. So let's hit the Administrivia. So our next Dive Club meeting is 20 February at 7 p.m. at Rudy's Restaurant. If you're in the area, I'd love to see you there. And as I mentioned last time, we have picked out the dates for our scuba classes this year. So here they are: April 24th through the 27th, May 22nd through the 25th, June 26th through the 29th, July 24th through the 27th, August 28th through the 31st, and September 25th through the 29th. We will do special classes by request, but it typically will cost you more unless I can get an actual group together. I do these only once a month because I like to recreationally dive, and I dive a lot. And then I'll be posting these too as we figure these out, trips up to Balmoral. So we love going up there. And as mentioned, we have the Upstagers presenting Show People, which is a musical review on the 21st, 22nd, 28th of February, and March 1st. So if you're in the Del Rio area and want to see yours truly and my lovely wife and producer, and now with a famous name on a semi-famous movie, Tara, in a different venue on stage. You can check that out. A lot of great talented people up there with a fun show with a variety of different show tunes. If you want to get in touch with us, you can always follow us on our website, delriodiveclub.com, or check us out on Facebook, where we always check that out regularly, Facebook/Del Rio Dive Club, or you can send us messages using our Skype address, TGWD. And, of course, if you want to follow me on the Twitter, I will warn you ahead that I do a lot of political stuff on there, but I'll again, kind of like this show, I'll cover just about, I'll tweet about a number of things, but a lot of the stuff that I do is political. So if you're brave enough to follow me on Twitter, just check me out at RobertCFP, or you can send me email. I do read my own email. I respond to all my own email as anybody who has sent me email knows. So you can just send it to robert.wade@cetifox.net. That is all we have for this week, and here we are, all by myself, and still running 10 minutes over time. I have no problem talking, as you can see. So, again, if you are when you watch live, if you get interactive in the chat room and send us messages, I will respond. We'll react to you. Looks like Texas Diver was just watching the show and not reacting. That's okay. If you just want to watch, that's all right. But we'd love to interact with you because it's more fun for us. Because we can talk all day long. That's no problem. But it's more fun if we can interact with you live on the show. So anyway, that finishes up for this week. And barring any unforeseen circumstances, we look forward to seeing you next week on another great episode of Two Guys Who Dive. See ya.